If your score is worse than the average of all towns, but better than the threshold on the far right, then your indicator is yellow. If you are worse than the town average and you're worse than the threshold, then your indicator is red. If you are better than the average and better than the threshold, then your indicator is green. Green is good.
Green is good.
Green is good.
That's us.
So let's walk through and see how we're doing according to these indicators. So the first one is reliance on government transfers. So that is, how much do we depend on transfers from other level of government for our operations? And you can see for the 3 years that we have, 11-12, 12-13, and 13-14, we are in the green. We are below 5%. The threshold is 15%, and the town average is about 10%. So we have a large degree of independence from other levels of government in terms of funding our operations. Uncollected taxes, you can see that ours has come down from 9.9% down to 9%. We've gone from the yellow area into the green area. We're below the threshold, and we are very comparable to other towns. The other town average is 9.1. We're at 9.0. 3-year change in tax base. This is a reflection of how does your change in tax base compare to CPI. So change in CPI over the previous 3 years. 3 years? Yes. So this should not be a surprise to council that the growth in our tax base has been less than CPI over the past 3 years. It is a red indicator. What does that mean? Well, we can't control it, for sure, but we should be concerned about it, and we should be thinking about what can we do about it. And I would suggest to you that one of the things that you're trying to do about it is trying to help the local economy. We've engaged an economic development officer. We are participating in the REN. We are concerned about growing our local economy, which will in turn, we hope, affect the tax base. Commercial property assessment. What percentage of our overall assessment is commercial? We are above average. We're above the average town, and we're well above the threshold. And reliance on a single business or institution. Again, we are less dependent on a single business than the average town, and well below the threshold. So on the revenue dimension, I would say that we're in pretty good shape, but there is a red there, and a red is to be concerned about.
Good. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. To yourself or the finance officer, the CPI loss, in other words, losing ground because of taxes, roughly over the last 3 years, what would that be as a percentage?
We'd have to dig
if taxes had gone up at a proper rate to adjust to CPI, we would be looking at 4 or 5%, I would gander on this one, just judging by
over what period?
3 years.
3 years?
Maybe more?
5 to 7. In that rate, yeah.
Because kind of interpreting this, number one, we haven't moved our tax rate for a number of years, and this is only 3 years. When was the last time we actually had a tax increase? I mean, I've been around this table for going on 6 years now, and I don't think we've ever put our taxes up in 6 years, have we, Councillor Moon? No, we've actually lowered the taxes. I'd like to, Your Worship, like to request and put in a motion if I have to, but I don't think I have to. I'd like to get a bit of an analysis sheet from staff, if at all possible, showing about that whole tax number, like where are we at with this, like where could have we have been and where should we be going. I don't think it takes rocket science here to figure out we're going to have to look at a tax increase. I hate to bring that up, but from my vantage point, we're seeing the assessments going down. We're basically flatlining, and at my age, Jim, flatline is definitely a bad thing for us. You know, the reality is we're not keeping up with growth, and to be honest with you, Jeff and Jerry, I'm amazed that you guys have done what you've done so far with what little you have. And I know I've been on the council kind of affecting that bottom line, but from my vantage point, I'm one of the biggest proponents of not having a tax increase. But folks, I can see the writings on the wall here. Especially, we're going to have to look seriously at something this year in budget deliberations. I cannot see us continuing this road, Your Worship. If we're planning to do the things that you'd like to see us do, Your Worship, and this council would like to see, it's unless we can suddenly get rabbits out of a hat And I'm afraid the rabbits haven't been running a lot in Yarmouth this year, or grow some money trees. We're going to have to face reality here. So, thank you for this. But could we get a bit of an analysis? It would be. I know, Jerry, you did something a few years ago similar to that, like where we should be, where we could be, and where we are. You know, and like with relation to increase, especially, you know, what do we actually need? Because I think we may have to bite the bullet.
So there are two parts to the revenue. There's two parts to the revenue equation, I guess, when you talk about taxation. One is assessment, and one is tax rate, and it's a simple math. Assessment times rate equals your revenue. So we can do an assessment that would be based on the revenue side of it. I think you don't look just at the assessment or just at the tax rate. You have to look at what the combined effect is, because as we saw in an earlier slide, we've had years when assessments have grown quite significantly. The last few years has been the flat line. So we can do an analysis on the revenue side of it to kind of show you, and we can put below that changes in assessment, changes in rate, and kind of show you what the effect is there that might help you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just one quick question. So, Jeff, we changed it from 4 years to 3 years. Or was it 4 years or 3 years? Like for if you're in the rears, or is it 2 years now?
We went from 3 to 2.
3 to 2. So we're at 2 years now. And that's made a big difference, I would think.
It's made a difference in the receivables. It's helped with that decrease from 10% to 9%. We have more people in tax arrears arrangements now than we did before.
Okay.
That's another policy the council
That's a
introduced.
good thing.
But that is a good thing, because
Yeah.
it puts them on a schedule and,
Yeah.
and helps them manage that.
Yeah.
It would be better if we had nobody on those arrangements.
Yeah,
and
that's
everybody was up
true.
to date.
But this does help.
That's a cash flow issue, and just to be
Yeah.
clear,
Okay.
the cash flow is different than your revenue.
Okay.
We count the revenue based on the assessment times the rate.
Yeah.
When we receive it, and managing the cash flow is
Yeah.
more of a balance sheet
I just
question.
got my assessment the other day. Okay, great. Thank you.
Good.
Carry on?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. So budget indicators. So the first one here is residential tax effort. And that one is about what percent of the average or the median household income goes towards paying the average residential tax bill. And you can see that we are in the red on that. We have been over the 3 years, 4.6% up to 5.1%. The town average is 3.3 up to 3.9. The threshold is below 4. So our residential tax effort as a percentage of median household income is higher than the average town. But
So-
remember, our median household income
It's lower.
is 25% lower
Yeah.
than the average town. Last year, I didn't do it this year, we just got these numbers this week, I did the calculation based on the 3.3 average and our 4.6 score. And when you adjusted for the median household income, we were down at about 3.3.
Okay.
So the issue that is driving us into the red on this is the median household income.
Yeah,
Now, our tax rates are not light, but we are in the middle on the residential side of all towns. Of the 30 towns, our rate is in the middle. So the threshold being below 4.4% assumes that I think it assumes that your household income is around the average, and that it's okay to tax at that rate. And I don't know, I honestly don't know. I don't agree with this, and I'll tell you why I don't agree with it, is that and I keep singing from the same song sheet, but we fund our amortization. We pay for our way on capital, where other municipalities do not. We could not do that if our intention was to be below that 4%, unless we pass it on to the commercial tax rate. We could not get that indicator into the green. And so I think that there's a bit of a flaw in the logic there, that forcing us to try and get that into the green would cause us to make fiscal policies as the town, fiscal decisions as the town, that would be contrary to the long-term best interests of the town,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
yeah. Go
So that-
ahead, Danny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jeff, I don't know if you know this or not, but do you know what the tax rate is in the municipality? Commercial, excuse me, commercial tax rate.
I believe, no, I don't. I think it is, I would only be guessing, but 215
215?
plus a fire rate.
So
Another
what's,
16 cents or around the town. It changes by district, by fire district.
okay, so a business wants to start up in the municipality. I mean, if a business wants to start up versus the town and the municipality, given all that they're looking at money-wise, and I had this question asked of me the other day, and I didn't know the answer. I forgot that ours was 4.5, is it? 4.5. And I forgot the gentleman, I forgot to ask him what the rate was for the municipality, and I thought you might know, or Jerry, do you know what it is?
No, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, well, I'll find
So,
out anyway.
so I know what you're saying is that our tax rate is a disincentive to business locating in the town.
On this particular
Rel-
one
relative-
was,
Relative to our neighbors, and
Yeah.
I think it really depends on the type of business.
yeah,
You know, we benefit from the fact that we have density,
yeah,
and density means traffic, and business that sells, that does retail,
Yeah.
wants to be where the people are, and
Yeah.
so we do have an advantage there. There's a cost to it
but
as
it's,
well.
it's just like you said, it depends on what business it is.
That's right.
In this particular case, that wasn't the case. It was strictly dollar-wise. So commercial is, yeah, 215, okay,
215 and residential's 160.
okay, 215, okay, thank you, thank you.
116.
I think if you look at the fire rates, they're another 16 cents or so in the periphery. Okay?
Okay,
All right.
go ahead.
Okay, next one's deficits in the last 5 years. You can see that we're in the 1, the threshold is below 1, so we're yellow. I guess we're higher than the average, but not above the threshold, so we're in the yellow. Budget expenditure accuracy, well, you can see that we're in the green the last 2 years. I think we still have a little bit of an issue with how they calculated the score in 11-12, but we'll let that one go. We're in the, yeah, we're in the green, and that's a good thing. Our budget accuracy is pretty darn good, and I think you've seen that in your audited financial statements. Our liquidity ratio is very good, double the average town at 3.0 versus 1.4. And our operating reserves have been increasing.
Wow.
We're at 22% versus the average town of 14.6. Debt and capital, and this sheet is one that I think Jerry and I think I speak for Jerry to say that he and I take a lot of pride in this particular sheet, because this is how you're managing the long term, the infrastructure, and how you're paying for your infrastructure. So on the debt side, our debt percentage is down to 3.5% versus the average town of 7.9%, and of course the threshold is 15%. Outstanding debt, we're at 0.8% of our assessment, of our uniform assessment, is what our debt is. The threshold is below 3.5. Undepreciated assets. Now, Jerry and I have a little problem with this one, and this I think, I want to talk about this for a second, because it illustrates a problem in the FCI. We had concerns, we talked about it a lot a couple months ago around the fiscal review and the use of the FCI for a purpose for which it was never intended. At that time, we had 1 year of experience with the FCI. When we looked at this one, we see that our undepreciated assets percentage is decreasing from 69% down to 66%. And Jerry and I are scratching our heads, because we're investing more in our infrastructure relative to our depreciation than any other municipality in the province, and yet our percentage on this is getting worse. So we dug into the formula. How do they calculate this? What are the numbers they're using? It can't be right. Well, in fact, the numbers they're using are right, but it is impossible to get a positive uptick. In fact, in order for our number in 14-15 to stay at 66.3, we would have had to have spent $9 million on infrastructure just to keep it, because what happens is, as you invest in assets, so the formula is your net book value of your assets divided by your total cost of your assets. So let's say you add $2 million in assets. the net book value is always going to be less than the total cost because you have to subtract your amortization expense, right? So you add less to the numerator than you do the denominator, significantly less every year. In order for it to break even, we would have to spend $9 million on infrastructure this year, and the next year even more. So the formula, I know what they're trying to say. They're trying to say how much useful life is in your infrastructure. How much of your infrastructure is fully used up in terms of its expected useful life. That's what they're trying to tell you, but the formula is wrong. The formula is flawed, and so we stumbled across that, and we've advised them of that. So how does that relate to fiscal review? Remember, the province and the Fiscal Review Committee were suggesting using the financial condition index as a trigger for policy processes. And here we find in the second year of using it that there's a significant flaw in one of the formulas. We know that because we pay attention to that line item, Jerry and I, more than perhaps anything else.
Yep.
There are other municipalities that may be paying closer attention to some of the other lines, and there may be, in fact, flaws in some of the logic or calculation that's being used. All I'm saying is the FCI is not perfect. There's an assumption by the Fiscal Review Group that it is a useful tool for a purpose, and I think the useful purpose for this tool is conversation and discussion and setting the scene for your budget processes, but it is not to trigger processes over which you have no control.
So you're going to tell them that?
We've told them that.
Going to tell them again?
We've sent them the email. Now, Mr. Varon is attending. I think perhaps Phil is
Phil,
attending.
you're going tomorrow?
So they're having an FCI information meeting in the Valley tomorrow. So we'll have a couple representatives there. Jerry is quite capable of discussing this and bringing this to light, seeing where they are with it. I'm planning to attend the one in White Point next week on Tuesday, and perhaps some others. I think we need to raise it there too. My concern is that they won't, well, if they hear that feedback and they understand the flaw and they acknowledge it and acknowledge that they need to change that formula, great, we don't need to keep talking about it. But if they say, no, the FCI is good and we're going to stand behind it, then we have a real problem.
So you're going to pay close attention to what the response is,
Yes.
in case we have to do double duty next week.
Have you found flaws in any other of their criteria, any other of their categories?
We haven't found anything as blatant as this. And we wouldn't have seen this if not for the trend. Now, the trend was troubling to us because we felt that it should have been going the other way. If we were a municipality that was not funding our amortization, we might not be surprised if it was trending downward. But where we expected it to be trending upward and it was going downward, that's where the problem came. So it might be nobody else will even notice this because they're expecting it to go downward and it goes downward, right? So no, we haven't found anything like this in any of the other formulas. You know, they're not perfect. They're not, but I think the formulas work for what they're trying to convey as information. I think in the other cases, in this case, clearly not.
Good. Thanks.
So 5-year capital purchases, and this is as a percentage of your 5-year amortization. Again, we are above the average in every one of the 3 years, and certainly well above the threshold. And that is because of our investment in our capital assets. 5-year contributions to capital reserves. So this number is going up, and I can explain that to you a little bit, I believe, and Jerry will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, is that this number is increasing not because we're planning to put lots of extra money in capital reserves. This is because of the lag that we get between the approval of a capital budget and the actual execution and completion of a capital project. So we approve a budget in say, May, getting $2–3 million worth of capital work designed, tendered, built, done in that fiscal year is difficult. So what the financial process is, what we don't spend on those capital projects in that capital budget that year goes into reserve and gets spent out of reserve the next fiscal year. So you don't need to budget for it twice, but there is a time lag between when you allocate the funds to a project and when the final dollars get spent, and that's reflecting an increasing backlog of capital project completion. So infrastructure deficit, this is my last slide. Infrastructure is our property, our buildings, and our equipment. In 2007, FCM estimated that Canada had an infrastructure deficit of $123 billion. Town of Yarmouth owns a piece of that, certainly not a significant piece, but we own a piece of that. And what we've been doing for the last almost 10 years now is making our infrastructure deficit smaller. And that is a very good thing, and we're one of a handful of municipalities in Canada that consistently over that period of time has done that. Every now and then, a municipality does a major capital project, and for a year or two, they go the other way. We have consistently for 10 years now. I'm done.
Good on
So-
you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so our next steps in our budgeting process, we're going to talk about priorities, we're going to talk about capital projects, we're going to get estimates in front of you. We have all the motions you've made throughout the year. We're going to do whatever analysis you ask. Sorry? And supervisors will be in here to talk to you about their projects, their departments, and so on. And we'll get to a budget. Our goal would be to approve a budget as early as we did last year. I think we did it in May. So we'll shoot for May. Okay? Last year, we did some things ahead of time as well. You remember we did our grants to organizations? We'll do that again. We did our capital budget early. We'll try and do that again.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you, Jack, very much. And Jerry, because I know you worked on that.
You can speak for me once in a while.
Okay, so we're good. Citizen Advisory Committee members. CAO?
Your Worship, this is an information item, and I thank Councillor Dawes for bringing this to my attention. We have a Citizen Advisory Committee policy, which sets our appointment term for all of our Citizen Advisory Committees at 2 years. And we have a policy that lays out how we do our citizen appointments. Now, I say 2 years. The terms were 2 years from the initial appointment of the council mandate, and so anyone who's been appointed in the interim, their term expires at the same time. So we will go through at the March Committee of the Whole meeting is when it's set to happen. You'll have your applications before you, and you'll be asked to consider making appointments to your committees for the next 2 years. Okay? Yeah. Well, if he does a
You're
good
out.
job.
Excellent. Okay, Heritage Officer Designation, CAO.
Your Worship, I circulated an email within the last week or so about designating Caroline King as our Heritage Officer. And so I had a couple of comments back on email, but if it's your wish, then you should recommend the council that she be designated as the town's Heritage Officer.
Absolutely.
Moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Congratulations. You're our new Heritage Officer. Yes, subject to council approval.
She didn't want it, we're gonna give it to the chief.
Yeah, Chief, you were next in line.
Yeah, who's ever here is gonna get it.
Yes, recommend to council. Correspondence for action. Excuse me, you're right, I do need the hospital. Maud Lewis Corner proposal. Let's, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion this be referred to Communities in Bloom for consideration.
Go ahead, you're
No,
on.
I'm fine, I'm good with it, because my first thought was, yes, isn't that cute? It's very entertaining, very warm and fuzzy, but in any intersection, you're going to have tires, you're going to have rubber on asphalt. That corner is also going to be, that intersection is also going to be dug up soon. It's also, as a driver, now as a pedestrian, I would think it's really, really cute, but as a driver, it's very distracting. And I would much rather see something as beautiful as this. It's a lovely idea. I'd rather see that in either a pedestrian zone or on the side of a wall, so I can appreciate it by looking at it straight on. So I'm glad Communities in Bloom is taking that on.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. David Oley, request for presentation. Markland Viking Project. Whew. Do we require a presentation? I mean, I gotta say, I like all this, I like all the stuff in here, but it's gonna cost. If we wanna hear him, yes. Well, he only gets 10 minutes. Yeah.
Not like Jeff's.
Okay. Okay, so there's a motion to invite David Oley to present on the Markland Viking project. Moved and seconded. Counselor Dawes? No? Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Kevin Taylor, veteran status? Did I miss that? Oh. Go ahead, Counselor Dawes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was hoping that the chief was here. Is it Chief?
There.
There
Behind the
you
heritage
are.
office.
Thank you. If you would speak to this, please. It's not that we're questioning. Oh, just for this. Thank you.
Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, it's just a request that he can get veteran status. He wanted to have that on his records, so that's the main reason why he put the letter in.
Okay,
Good.
good.
That
Simple as
comes
that.
with everyone's recommendation. You need a motion?
Yes,
I
please.
shall make that motion.
Moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Previously distributed. The only addition is the Agricultural Society that had requested a decision that we had filed. So I'm just looking for a motion to either. Go ahead, CAO. Yeah, they were asking for funding.
Right, yeah, Your Worship, you'll recall the presentation they made a couple of months ago. They were citing difficult times this year financially, and they were looking for some sharing of funding to pay Mariner Center for the use of the facilities and property during last summer's exhibition.
Okay, so I'm looking for just action. Go ahead.
Action. Your Worship, we have a process we're going to go through this Saturday. I see them on the list. So that satisfies me. That should satisfy. I'm not speaking for any other councilors, but at that time, we can choose to give to the cause or not give to the cause. So we're going to, I would suggest that we go through the process we're going through Saturday, if that's a sufficient answer. I would say to myself, I'm not in favor of giving the monies that they're shortfall. I've had this conversation with you on the phone. I'm not in favor of that, so.
Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship.
I wasn't finished yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's
Just a
all right.
second, Councillor.
I like to hog the mic when I get
No, I
all
hit the
excited
button.
here. But anyway, Your Worship, I think that this would set a precedence, and a precedence, we've said enough sitting around this table, and I think we ought not do that. And I think that it's fortunate that they're in this bind, but there's other ways that they can probably come up with the money, and they are trying to. They're having fundraisers. They're going to have some sort of a thing out to they hope to have one out to the airport, a drag race, whatever it is. So I think they're probably they're quite smart. They'll probably come up with the monies and that. So I would recommend that we don't give the monies. We use the process that we're going to go through on Saturday. That's when I will choose to either give or not give. So I would say, if you're looking for somebody to say we don't support their request, I so move.
Can't have a negative motion, so we would, well, you can't.
So you put a positive motion.
And you vote it down, yeah. Yeah. Okay, Counselor Dawes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had, after the presentation, pardon me, of, I forget when they made it, I sent out an email asking if we had heard anything or if we had been in correspondence in, excuse me, communication. It is this room. Communication with our colleagues out in Modi to get information from them and get some feedback from them. And I did not receive any, did we not hear
I
from,
don't think they've
from
made
our
any.
colleagues? Did they not reply, like I did not get a reply?
Do you remember what that was? Oops. Just wait, it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, they've not made a decision, and they're finding it as difficult as you folks are. I was in communication with their CAO last week about this, as recently as last week, and they were dealing with it and discussing it as recently as last week, and so no decision on their part yet. So.
All right, good, thank you. You've just,
And they have not asked Argyle, by the way. I did reach out to Argyle as well, and they have not even received a request.
all right. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know in my email.
Just a question for the CEO. My understanding, the original request from the Yarmouth Agriculture Society was for the 2014 exhibition. That is what the request was. Our budget deliberations that we're going to be doing on Saturday would be for the next fiscal year. Given that, I'd like to make a motion that we grant the Yarmouth Agricultural Society the sum off whatever their request is, dollars to put this on the floor and to put it to bed. Not that I'm going to vote for it, but I'm going to put the motion there and then see what happens.
Yeah, moved and seconded. Any more discussion? What's that? So, I don't know. But, well, quickly.
I'll just clarify, Your Worship. The request was for the 2014 fiscal year is what it is. The budget request that they're going to be seeing us on Saturday is going to be for the 2015-16 fiscal year. Their request was 14. This matter's been banding around. They deserve an answer.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it on the table as a motion, Your Worship. I'm not going to vote for it, but I'm putting it on as a motion so that we can give them an answer. And I'm voting in the negative simply because I feel that there just was not enough information. Secondly, I'm not satisfied about the dollar value, and I feel very bad that the Mariner Center, if my understanding and memory serves me right, there's a little bit of a bill there. There's been some, it's a concern, so I can't support it.
Can't either. I can't either. What? Okay.
I'm sorry, would you repeat, or Linda, would you repeat the motion that was just made? All right. All right. I've been here too long. I've had too many sneezes. The
No, no,
carpet, I'm
so-
feeling it. So I was a little confused with the motion that I recall you having made, and I believe I seconded it. And now you're saying that you're not going to support it. So
But you can't do a negative motion.
I understand.
So-
Yes, but you.
And we had to get it on the floor. Okay. Is there? No, are you withdrawing your second?
No.
No, we're good. It is confusing, okay.
For clarification, because
And,
one moment you're saying left, and then you're saying right.
yeah, we have to just, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was just going to clarify so everyone understands, is the amount requested was 5,000 from us, and they indicated they were asking the municipality for 5,000. So 5,000 is the amount of the motion.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Counselor Dennis, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, it is an event that brings people into the town, and couldn't we at least give them something?
Well,
Sorry.
you can, the motion on the floor now is to pay the entire amount.
Okay.
For the 2014
So if you wanted to make a motion after with another number, then you could do that.
Okay.
Okay, does that help? Is that, okay? Not me. Okay? All right. Question's been called. All those in favor? Contrary? Nay. Okay. Motion defeated. We just defeated it. We're not paying the bill from last year.
I just asked the deputy mayor, was it just he and I against the world on this?
No. Go ahead, Counselor Dennis.
I'd like to make a motion to pay half of the $5,000. If somebody wants to.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Contrary? Nay. Motion defeated. Okay, Ag Society, okay, so just 4-3. Okay. I have this. What order? Just 1 second.
Yeah, finish
I
this
do too.
meeting and then we'll do that. So
Okay, so are we going in camera first, or are we gonna? You have nothing, okay, sorry.
Your Worship, there was one item in the previously distributed, I think warrants a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss that?
Yeah, previously distributed, and that is the letter from, to the Minister of Environment from Yarmouth, the District of Yarmouth. They were asking us for support. They wrote to the Minister requesting the possible placement of a Doppler radar system in Yarmouth. I'd like to make a motion that we support that a letter of support be sent to the Federal Minister of Environment, supporting the municipality of the District of Yarmouth in an attempt to get a Doppler radar system placed in the Yarmouth area. That would be my motion.
No, there's no request. Yeah, we can do it. Is this on behalf of the industrial commission? EMO, that was it. Okay. All right, moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Now, we have to go, we're going to finish this meeting? Okay, motion to adjourn. Okay, wait a second. Go ahead, no, she had a question in camera.
I have a question before we even go in camera, but it's too late now. Or there is one letter under correspondence
What is it?
that I do believe has been straightened out. Is that correct? The
Which-
question of policy?
Oh, absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
I just sent an
Just-
email back
just
and
so
it
long-
was a...
Just so long as that's on record, that it has
Yes.
been acknowledged and it has been addressed and it's done. Thank you.
Thank you. Complete miscommunication. All right, so we are, motion to adjourn. Okay, and then we're going into a regular meeting? Okay, we're going into a regular council meeting, just for a second. Call the meeting to order, record of attendance, Linda, declarations of conflict of interest, approval of agenda, don't even. No, go ahead.
I think, given time, I would like to have that recommendation from Committee of the Whole regarding the Killam Building go on this agenda because the Heritage meeting is on Monday, and therefore it would be made a little bit better.
The recommendation yes, designate the Killam Building. Okay? All right. Is everybody okay with that?
Deputy Mayor calls that, isn't it?
Calls what?
You make that motion?
No? Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
thank you, Worship. So the item that was referred earlier was the request or the recommendation from your building inspector, your building official,
That was it.
that you issue an order under the minimum housing standards bylaw on 216 Main Street, and it was recommended from Committee of the Whole to make that order, and so someone would be required to make that motion at this council meeting.
I so move. You guys never, okay. Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yes, sir?
Item number 2, Your Worship, it was recommended from the Committee of the Whole meeting earlier today that the town apply for heritage registration to the town of Yarmouth for the Killam Building on Water Street.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Questions being called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? How many nays we got? 3. Okay, motion carried. Motion to adjourn? Do we need to go in camera? But we're not going in camera. What's that? You want to go in camera? Okay, we're going in camera for a minute.
Are they gonna come back out? Are you gonna come back out after?
In a minute, or?
To do